Hi, I'm Bill Walton. I love, among many things, being alive, basketball, and learning new stuff. And so I'm here with my wonderful friend John Mahoney and his terrific new film, Cracking the Code of the Jump Shot. Yeah, the jumper, the essence of basketball today. Put the ball in the hoop. It's how you win the game. Though, much like life itself, once the ball leaves your hands, there's nothing you can do about it anymore. But in the preparation and the delivery of the jump shot, there's an endless list of things that we can do. And that's what I focus on in life, basketball, and in everything else that I try to do. Fortunately, John Mahoney, one of my master teachers, has taken the analysis of the jump shot to a whole new level of understanding and comprehension with his superb new film that breaks it all down in the scientific realm that's John's life as a visionary thinker and a professor of the laws of physics. Life today, like basketball and most everything else, is better than ever. Knowledge, science, facts, applications, it's all right here for us. Contrary to one way of thinking, where the more you know, the more you'll suffer, John, he lives a life where the more you know, the better you'll be. He throws it down here, big time, with the how, the what, and the why of the jump shot and its relationship to many other human endeavors as we relentlessly search for the perfection, the beauty, the precision, accuracy, the rhythm, and the desired result of what we call the Tao of the jump shot. Please, come along for the ride of a lifetime as we drift, ponder, and dream about the code of the jump shot that John Mahoney has cracked by incorporating all the disciplines that form the basis of life itself: physics, math, history, geography, biology, philosophy, spirituality, culture, and societal. John's a New Jersey guy, born, raised, and to this day. He went to Navy in Annapolis and played basketball on their fine teams. He was married to his beloved Anna English for nearly 50 years before she recently passed. Anna was a celebrated and honored Broadway performer. In addition to his boundless love for his wife, John loves writing, teaching, physics, and basketball. And his newest project, Cracking the Code of the Jump Shot, is the culmination of his life's passion and purpose. Basketball, the global iconic game of mankind, is a most cerebral game requiring superb levels of mental acuity, and the jump shot is a complex, five-fold dynamic movement whose fundamental code is broken down here in mathematical and scientific terms and expresses the rhythm, harmony, and order of life as the manifestation of all unconscious cosmic energy and movement throughout the universe. The knowledge shared in cracking the code includes the proper parabolic path of the ball to the basket as a mirrored symmetrical curve created by gravity and inertia, the same cosmic movement seen in all heavenly bodies. It also incorporates the scientific principles of Isaac Newton, Johannes Kepler, Leonardo da Vinci, and Vitruvius, and how their groundbreaking studies are foundational pillars of the jump shot. And this stimulating film even explains the architectural brilliance of the Great Pyramids at Giza, which slopes at the same angle of 52 degrees that the shooting arm has at the release of the ball. The code also reveals the principle of alignment, essential to any successful jump shot. That's also found in the alignment of celestial spheres, the Great Pyramids, and any two objects that are separated in space. Now, as we try to find and get into the zone where we celebrate the freedom of action in the now, we discover the perfect rhythm of the intelligence of the human organism through vision and the action of pure seeing, which transcends the fragmentations of the thinking process. It all seems so natural, simple, and spontaneous, where everything rolls into one. Our challenge is to open and expand our minds, seeking clarity and direction, and to accept and embrace that everything and everyone is connected, and ultimately to become one with the rhythms of the universe, to become Tao, as we grow, flow, and glow to the point where all our jump shots find their mark. Break it down, big man. Break it down.
You are now going to learn the correct form and mechanics of the jump shot, along with its proper mental approach from the basic catch and shoot position, sometimes called the triple threat position, from the potential of shooting, passing, and dribbling. You will find that the dynamic structure of this form and the elements of these mechanics belong to the greatest shooters in the history of basketball. The mastery of the jump shot from the catch and shoot position builds the foundation from which you can learn the basic rhythms, timing, mechanics, and execution of delivering the shot, both from the dribble and standstill position. It gives you the power of eluding a defender with the dribble and without it. Yet it allows you to keep your shooting form constant from your torso upwards to the point of release. In other words, your shooting form will remain almost fixed, not only in the catch and shoot position, but during the many moves from which you shoot under various game conditions. It provides you with the freedom of space to launch the shot with the highest probability of success. In the field of competitive sports, nothing compares to the variety of moves that supplement and complement any single offensive skill as the jump shot does. In its pure execution from every position, the jump shot is a dynamic five-fold movement requiring the application of nearly all of the more than 600 muscle systems of the body at different moments in its execution. These neuromuscular actions work in concert with all the major joint systems of ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, elbows, wrists, fingers, and feet. Its coordination requires agility and strength and takes years of practice to master, integrating body, mind, and spirit at the height of its perfection. The purpose of this total movement is to create the optimal conditions to launch a shot while diminishing defensive interference and providing the shooter with the greatest probability of a score. These factors, which are built into the form, lead to the epitome of proficiency of the most versatile and complex offensive skill in all of sports. Within its five-fold movement, the jump shot has 5 distinct subdivisions, phases, or postures. Each subdivision is characterized by 2 features. It has a clear beginning and end, and it serves a specific and critical function in the complete execution of the shot. The 5 phases from start to finish are the crouch, the stretch, the lift, the stroke release, and the descent. They flow into one another seamlessly and organically. Before the first subdivision of the crouch begins, the player is standing in the catch and shoot position with head erect, shoulders relaxed, hips and feet square to the basket. The body weight is distributed equally over the feet at shoulder width. The entire organism is balanced and symmetrical through the body's center of gravity. Your center of gravity is located somewhere near the belly button, on an imaginary vertical axis extending downward from the center of your head to the opening between your feet. This balancing and centering of the entire body with feet set is accomplished quickly, without rushing, under game conditions. The ball is held firmly, but not tightly, in both hands close to the body, at a height somewhere between the stomach and the chest. It is sometimes aptly described as gathering the body before the shot. Immediately after centering, the crouch begins the jump shot motion. The knees bend and the upper body leans slightly forward, bending at the hips, while the center of gravity of the body ball system accelerates downward. Simultaneously, the shooting hand rotates slightly along the ball's surface towards its top center, while the non-shooting hand rotates slightly towards its bottom center. Your elbows are kept at a slight yet comfortable distance from the sides of your body. Your knees should stop their bend when they are approximately positioned over the balls of the feet. As this downward body motion occurs, the ankles flex upwards along the arches of the feet, allowing the heels to rise slightly above the floor. Simply stated, your body lowers and the heels rise. Without this change in the entire body shape, the muscles, joints, and tendons would not be in a position to synchronize together in order to exert an optimum amount of force needed to rise a good vertical distance off the floor. It is important to note that a muscle exerts a maximum amount of force when it stretches about 20% of its non-contracted length. Therefore, too much or too little bend at the knees will result in a lower applied force to the floor, decreasing the vertical height of your jump. Optimum knee angle provides maximum lift. Without the correct reconfiguration of the body into the crouch, you will not explode off the floor. Practice until you find the correct amount of knee bend, the amount that allows you to exert maximum downward force on the court. At the end of this compressed like spring position of the crouch, the body immediately extends upward, beginning the stretch phase. In this phase, your body straightens as your arms move the ball in an arcing motion to a position above your head and over your ear. It is now vertically aligned approximately either over your right ear or left ear, matching your shooting hand. This position is called the shooting pocket. With the ball in this pocket, your shooting arm is parallel to the side of your body, allowing your elbow to be an alignment marker for the ball's height above your head. Your forearm and upper arm is aligned to the center of the arc of the rim, nearest to your position on the court. With reference to your body, your elbow level should be somewhere between the bridge of your nose and your eyes. Remember, your forearm, upper arm, and elbow remain aligned in a vertical plane to the center of the rim's arc nearest to you. In summary, the second phase, the stretch, consists of a coordinated upward motion of the body and a downward force of the muscles. Your muscles push down while your entire body moves up. This polar coordination of muscular movement, some muscles moving your body upward while others pushing downward, requires a fantastic array of tendons, ligaments, joint systems cooperating in opposite directions. Your center of gravity moves upward while the body drives a powerful downward force into the floor through the balls of the feet. In sum, this synchronization of muscle movement of the entire body imparts a maximum total force to the floor, while the overall body assumes the important pre-stroke shooting form. Keep in mind, seemingly small details such as the motion of the parts of the feet are critical. For example, don't forget to push your toes downward in a slight curling action into the floor in order to add to your total downward force. Your departure from the floor occurs off the forefoot between the balls of the feet and the toes. When the ball reaches the shooting pocket above your head, the back of the shooting hand is approximately flat, parallel to the floor, and the non-shooting hand is lightly contacting the side of the ball. An imaginary downward pointing vertical line extends from the ball's center to intersect at a right angle to another imaginary line extending horizontally from the ear opening, parallel to the shoulder line and the floor. The intersection of this orthographic vertical and horizontal alignment needs to occur when the ball reaches the maximum comfortable height above the head and ear. If we extend a line from the center of the ball to the center of the rim's arc nearest to you, this orientation perfectly aligns the ball to the basket. This line forms a vertical plane with it as one side. It will then capture your stroking motion in 2 dimensions in perfect alignment to the center of the rim. The height of your jump will be determined by the ratio of the upward reaction force of the floor on you to the downward force of your weight. The greater this ratio, the higher and faster you will jump. The completion of the movements of these first 2 phases of crouch and stretch quickly and correctly culminates in an explosion off the floor, contributing immensely to the quickness of your release. You don't want to give your shot any unwarranted and extraneous motions. The first 2 phases of the 5-fold movement, the crouch and the stretch, are a tour de force of Newton's famous laws of motion and his universal law of gravitation. From the initial momentary non-movement of the catch and shoot position, the player moves downward as he or she reshapes the distribution of the body weight and form into the crouch position. At the bottom of the crouch, the player instantly changes the direction of motion upward by straightening and raising the frame of the body while lifting the heels off the floor, moving the body weight forward entirely onto the balls of the feet. Simultaneously with this upward movement, the shooter moves the ball gracefully in an arc as it is raised into the shooting pocket, centered above the ear. As the player leaves the floor, the net force, or the difference between the weight and initial thrust, produces a net force accelerating the player upward. When the player approaches the top of the jump, the net force gets smaller until it goes to 0 as the vertical movement terminates. The pre-shooting form now is crystallized and consummated at the instant before the player leaves the floor in his or her vertical jump. The shooting pocket form will ensure the proper alignment, vertical space, timing, and execution of the stroke at the top of the jump. You can see how comprehensively Newton's laws apply to these first 2 executions of the 5-fold movement. The force of gravity, which holds us all to the surface of the earth, is, like the second law of motion, expressed in a mathematical formula. The gravitational force F is equal to the gravitational constant G times the product of the player's mass times the mass of the earth divided by the distance between them squared. This law is one of the most famous of the various inverse square laws that dominate the landscape of physics. Of the 4 fundamental forces in the cosmos, it is gravity and electromagnetism as inverse square laws that play the most visible and significant roles. in sports and life. The other two forces making up the four fundamental forces are the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force that both work inside the atom. At the instant of takeoff from the floor, the lift, or the third phase of the five-fold movement, commences. The purpose of the lift is to create additional vertical space between you and the defense. Although your body as a whole moves upward during the lift, all body parts remain fixed in the position of the pre-release or pre-shooting form. No movement of either legs or arms during the lift can improve the height of your jump. Its immobile mobility signals the phase that is the advent of the consummation of the five-fold movement, the stroke release. Your fixed pre-shooting form has many significant features that are necessary in order for you to execute the stroke skillfully with all the dynamic elements that will give to your shot a high degree of accuracy and consistency. You can see that the ball is resting and centered on the outstretched fingers of the hand without making any contact with the palm of the hand. The space between the ball and the palm is called the gap. Like the ultimate importance of the empty space of the hub to the wheel's motion, this empty space allows the fingertips to control and provide backspin to the motion of the ball and guide it to the basket when released. The spread fingers and the gap are two of the ultimate factors in shooting accuracy. Make sure you have this gap with the middle finger along the center of the ball. When the ball is in the shooting pocket, it satisfies four conditions. The shooting hand is almost parallel to the floor. The wrist is bent back and directly under the ball. The ball is approximately centered over the ear. And finally, the shooting elbow is comfortably positioned somewhere between the eyes and the tip of the nose. Additionally, the opening between the elbows of both arms provides an unobstructed window to the basket. As part of this window frame, the non-shooting hand rests lightly on the side of the ball, holding it in position. The lower body from the waist to the toes is straight, with the toes pointing relatively downward. As the body approaches the top of the lift, before the peak of your jump is reached, the fourth phase, the penultimate and crucial phase of the five-fold movement begins, the stroke release. This phase is the pinnacle, the sine qua non, or indispensable element of the five-fold movement. Its importance in the consistency and accuracy of shooting is absolute. Not only does it determine the success or failure of the jump shot, but when done perfectly, it evokes the sense of the beautiful in exhibiting the creative possibilities of harmony and precision inherent in the movements of the human machine. The stroke release is both the synchrony and symphony of the intelligence and harmony of the human organism. It all begins with a very slight upward rotation of the shoulder that simultaneously initiates the unbending and forward movement of the forearm, wrist, hand, and fingers. All of these body parts rotate beautifully about their own centers while moving in an overall forward direction. However, as the shoulder terminates its slight rotation, the upper arm remains invariable or fixed at about the same angle of 52 degrees that it exhibits in the shooting pocket. All the multiple ligaments of the arm move coincidentally in their arcing motions in order to create the beauty of the shooting gesture called the stroke. While their individual curvilinear motions harmonize together, the ball rolls up the fingers slightly in a counterclockwise rotation, while the fingers move forward and downward along the surface of the ball in order to give it a counterclockwise rotation that the ball retains in its parabolic path to the basket. After the ball departs from the hand, its path or trajectory through space is determined by two parameters: the launching angle formed by the arm with the horizontal, and the amount of launching force applied by the muscles and tendons of the body. This trajectory is a parabolic curve that is one of the four conic sections that also include the hyperbola, circle, and ellipse. By definition, these curves form when a plane intersects a cone at various angles. The parabola of a projectile forms any time an object like a basketball, football, or soccer ball are launched into the space of the Earth's gravitational field, and the only dominant force present is that of gravity. When this occurs, gravity and inertia combine to create this beautiful and symmetrical arcing trajectory. For simplicity's sake, we will ignore the much smaller forces that are present, such as air drag, buoyancy, and the Magnus force, which is due to the rotation of the ball. To get a better visual understanding of how gravity and inertia act together, yet independently, we will use the Pythagorean theorem, along with vector resolution, to break down the launching velocity vector into its two independent yet conjoined components. These components will be labeled as v sub x for velocity in the x direction due to inertia, and v sub y for velocity in the upward or y direction. V sub x, since no force is acting on it, remains at a constant speed. V sub y continually changes from a maximum value at launch to a zero value at the apex of the parabola, and then continues its downward path, accelerating until it enters the rim, if it was executed correctly at the release point. The purity of the arcing motion of the stroke release phase includes three critical factors, each of which determines whether the shot will be successful or not: backspin, release angle, and the amount of applied force. At the time of release, the hand and ball move in an inverse motion relative to one another. The frictional force due to the movement of the hand over the ball works in combination with other muscular forces of the arm, imparting the counterclockwise spin and the upward and forward launch velocity of the ball. Obviously, all shots don't clear the rim perfectly and swish through the net. The shot can hit the rim or backboard and still go in. The importance of backspin is evident when this occurs. It will cause the reverse spinning ball to lose some of its forward momentum. The contact between the ball and rim or backboard changes the rotation of the ball to clockwise, losing energy in the process. It slows the ball down. In this way, it contributes to having a soft touch and also increases the probability of a successful shot. Furthermore, this loss of momentum leads to offensive rebounds for you or your teammates if the shot is missed. The other two essential factors of release angle and applied force join together to produce or not produce the highest probability of a score. The parabolic path, the minimum force angle arc of the ball's path to the basket, determines a make or a miss You can give the ball many arcs that can lead to a swish or a nothing but net shot. Each one requires a different combination of launching angle and speed. However, there is an optimum arc that provides the highest probability of a basket, and that is the minimum force angle arc, as established by the physicists Dr. Peter Brancazio and Dr. John Fontanella in their extensive, independent, and published books on the science of shooting. For the player, there are 4 critical positions on the parabola that indicate a successful shot path: the launching point, the apex, the entry point of the ball into the rim, and lastly, the horizontal range or distance from which the shot is taken to the center of the rim. The angle of release at launch should be about 52 degrees, while the apex or highest point of the ball in its trajectory should be slightly greater than 16 feet off the floor. The entry angle of the ball into the basket should be about 45 degrees or slightly more. Finally, the range or horizontal distance between the release point of the ball and the center of the rim is determined by the player's position on the floor. For example, the range for an NBA three-point shot taken from anywhere just behind the arc line has a range equal to 23 feet 9 inches. It is fascinating here to note that the approximate launching angle of the ball at 52 degrees forms a golden right triangle. This angle, with its accompanying golden right triangle, are one of the most famous geometric combinations in human history. Since the action of the arm during the stroke, after the final movement of the ball's release, forms a Kepler golden right triangle, we would be remiss in conscience if we did not mention Johannes Kepler's groundbreaking contributions to the revolutionary development of Western science that is on a par with Isaac Newton himself. The precision of Kepler's 3 laws of planetary motion were an astounding accomplishment spanning the period of the late 16th century and the beginning of the 17th century, during which the genius of Johannes Kepler created them. The first law states that the orbit of every planet is an ellipse with the sun at one focus. The second law states that a line joining the sun and a planet sweeps out equal areas in equal intervals of time. We also need to familiarize ourselves with the geometry of an ellipse before stating Kepler's third law. The major axis, the longest line of the ellipse, runs through the center and both foci, with the ends going to the widest points of the perimeter. The minor axis, the shorter axis of symmetry of an ellipse, runs through the center and is perpendicular to the major axis. The semi-major axis is, naturally, 1/2 of the length of the major axis. Finally, we can now express with comprehension that Kepler's third law states that the square of a planet's orbital period is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of their orbits. This ratio is the same for all the planets. Another extraordinary fact emerges from this golden or Kepler right triangle that is essential to the stroke and the dynamics of the jump shot. The architecture of the Great Pyramid at Giza in Egypt is formed from this very same golden right triangle. The 4 sides of the pyramid slope upward at a 51.5 degree angle, or approximately 52 degrees. In addition to this extraordinary fact, each of its four corners are aligned with the cardinal directions of true north, south, east, and west. Furthermore, as we move inside and view the interior grandeur of this great pyramid, we discover magnificent chambers called the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, and the Grand Gallery. In addition, we find shafts originating from both of these chambers with alignments to some of the most significant and sacred stars and star systems in the night skies. The northern shaft of the Queen's Chamber is aligned to Beta, an orange giant star that is the brightest star in the bowl of the Little Dipper, and is only slightly fainter than Polaris, a white supergiant that is our current North Star. The other shaft of the Queen's Chamber, the southern shaft, points to Sirius, a dazzling blue-white binary star that flickers in all the colors of the rainbow. It can be located in the sky by using stars in Orion's belt that point downward to it. It is the brightest of all stars in the night sky, and its rising before the sun heralded the flooding of the Nile in ancient Egypt. The King's Chamber also has two star-aligning shafts, angled to both the northern and southern faces of the pyramid. The northern shaft is aligned to Thuban, a blue-white binary star system that is in the constellation of Draco, the largest constellation in the northern hemisphere. Being circumpolar, this constellation never sets below the horizon and is thus always visible in our hemisphere. Thuban, located in the tail of the star formation of the Dragon in the Sky, or Draco, was the pole star in 2600 BC when the Egyptians started to build the Giza pyramids. Of course, it was also our North Star a long time ago, between the 4th and 2nd millennium BC. The other shaft of the King's Chamber, the southern shaft, is aligned to three bright stars that form a line in the sky called Orion's Belt, which is part of the Orion constellation located on the celestial equator and is visible throughout the entire world. Orion's Belt is also known as the Three Kings and Three Sisters. Below Orion's Belt, the most recognized star pattern around the globe, is a nebula that hides a vast stellar nursery. In this nursery, the radiant, brilliant stars illuminate clouds of cosmic dust and gas inside its core. Leonardo da Vinci created this most famous iconic representation in the world, showing mankind's symbolic relationship to the universe, called Vitruvian Man. It is named after the 1st century BC author and civil engineer Vitruvius, who first wrote about this subject. It depicts the human form with its outstretched limbs touching the circumference of a perfect circle, symbolically representing the entire cosmos. It implies that the human form, in its fundamental aspects of human nature, spirit, mind, and body, contain in their unity the transcendent and immanent aspects of all things. We have just seen the critical role alignments play in the field of ancient architecture and its relationship to the position of the stars and constellations. In shooting the jump shot, alignments are also fundamental and critical to the execution of the successful shot. The alignment of certain body parts, such as the arm, elbow, wrist, hand, and fingers, are absolutely necessary for consistency and accuracy in mastering the perfect shot. This star-like perfection joins two objects separated in space, the ball and the circular rim mounted 10 feet above the floor. Mastery of form, mechanics, and dynamic execution also require the indispensable element of alignment. The fifth and final phase of the five-fold movement is the descent, in which gravity returns you to the floor. At the end of this descent, when your feet hit the floor, you should slightly flex at the knees, hips, and ankles to cushion the impact of contact. The cycle of the five-fold movement is now complete. The body returns to the position it started from. The end is the beginning, and the beginning is the end when shooting a jump shot from the undefended catch and shoot position. The landing should be balanced and centered. If it is not, there is a problem somewhere in the overall movement, such as not going straight up in the lift or exerting too much force in the stroke release. It is not surprising that the word stroke applied to shooting a basketball comes from swimming, where shoulder rotation plays a requisite part in many different aquatic techniques and events. You will find that the five-fold movement offers you the most effective, efficient, and opportune form for shooting the jump shot. It gives you the most extension in the vertical dimension, allowing you to diminish defensive pressure. It is also the most versatile, quickest, and most skillful way of delivering your shot, both off the dribble and from moves such as crossovers, hesitations, sidesteps, backsteps, pull-ups, spins, and fakes, and also from the position of standing still using jab steps and other kinds of fakes. In addition, it is the most graceful and beautiful way to shoot. Lastly, its most important characteristics of delivering the ball at the highest possible point of the shooting form, and also of shooting along the minimum force curve of the parabola, are critical to your overall offensive skill as a player. The angle is set automatically by your form, while the applied force at release is determined automatically by the recall of kinesthetic memory developed through practice. We will now review some critical general principles, fundamental specifics, and practice routines of the entire five-fold movement. Obtain a seamless flow throughout the five-fold movement by executing the motions in each subdivision with the least possible motion of body parts. Organize your shooting routine so that you practice equally from all distances and angles to the basket. Practice establishes your kinesthetic memory. This memory lies throughout your whole body. It is not just localized in the brain like other memories, but lies in every cell of your organism. Find the correct knee angle in the crouch position, which allows all of your muscle strength to push into the floor. Too much or too little bend in the crouch will decrease the vertical space between you and the defender. Without this space, you are helping the opposition to disrupt your shot. Remember to keep raising your heels throughout the crouch and stretch. The heels continue to rise, pausing momentarily at the bottom of the crouch, and then continuing upward until the body leaves the floor at the end of the stretch. During the stretch, apply a strong force through your legs, ankles, feet, and toes to the floor, jumping off the forefoot or balls of your feet. When you thrust the ball into the shooting pocket during the stretch phase, you should feel the sensation of your stomach muscles stretching. This upward thrusting of the arms adds to the downward force applied to the floor, which simultaneously adds to the upward force of the floor on you, giving you more lift. Newton's third law of motion states, for every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. Don't release the ball on the way up. Release it at the peak of your jump. This timing is one of the critical factors in the performance of the jump shot. A very slight shoulder rotation starts an instant before the peak of your jump is reached, beginning the stroke release. The ball should never contact the palm of your hand while it is in the shooting pocket and during the action of the stroke release. Make sure you always maintain this critical gap between your palm and the ball. The ball should rest on your spread fingers and thumb, and the wrist should be under the ball. Keep the ball centered over the ear opening and raised above the head. It should be at the highest comfortable point in order to execute the shooting stroke action. The shooting hand is centered under the ball. Your middle fingertip on the center of the ball makes the last contact with it during release. The sensitivity and motion of the fingers are keys to the all-important release. This sensitivity during the stroke release is a fundamental factor in a successful shot. In your pre-shooting form, maintain the alignment of the arm, elbow, wrist, hand, and ball to the center of the section of the rim's arc nearest to you from where you take the shot on the floor. Do not lock the shoulder during the stroking action. Keep the elbow in parallel to the side of your body when the ball is in the shooting pocket. The elbow level should be positioned at a point approximately between the eyes and the bridge of the nose, depending on body shape and length. Time the departure of your non-shooting hand to a moment just before the release of the ball. Don't block your own shot. Learn to find the minimum force angle that feels effortless. This angle is set by the correct motion of the stroke release. You inwardly perceive this effortless state when the ball is released. The leeway or degrees of success is largest around this minimum force angle. It provides you with a small range of force angles for a successful shot. Let me repeat what I just said. It is a special combination of launch speed and angle that determines success. This combination gives the most leeway in force angles, leading to a score. Both high and low angles of a ball's arc require large forces in shooting. You don't want to shoot using these excessively high or low arcs with their large forces. In between these extremes lies the golden mean of the minimum force angle, the effortless shot. An effortless stroke release is the quickest release. Along with the crouch and stretch phases, it determines the overall quickness of the shot. Make sure that you establish a consistent release point for all your shots at the point at which the arm reaches verticality and before it continues on its downward arcing motion during the stroking action. Release the ball cleanly by giving it a reverse spin off the fingertips. It is the last body part to touch the ball. Without shooting the ball, practice the rolling of the ball over the fingertips to master this final finger ball movement that imparts a reverse spin and forward velocity to the ball. You feel it through your fingers. Do not squeeze the fingers at release. Always be aware of the position of the hand in the follow-through. It should be bent at the wrist in a forward direction, aligned to the rim, with no sideways action or movement at follow-through. Total strength development of the muscles, ligaments, and tendons of the entire body should be part of your practice routine. You must also complete a cardio conditioning program to minimize fatigue. Form follows function. Your jump shot form is a reflection of the need for accuracy, vertical space, and quickness. These functions are the raison d'etre, or reason for being, of the entire structure and motion of the five-fold movement. Full awareness of the ball body positions in your shooting motion is identical to and part of the total attention necessary for complete court vision in all aspects of the game. Your jump shot stroking motion can be used as the basis of your foul shot. Of course, it is not necessary to jump for your free throw, but the energy of the entire body should flow in harmony with the proper stroking action. Any shot, whether a foul shot, a hook shot, a runner, or a one-leg Nowitzki shot, will follow the basic principles and alignment and release that we see in the jump shot. Practice the footwork and dribbling necessary to master the wide varieties of moves used in conjunction with your jump shot. Your upper body position from the waist to the fingertips of the shooting hand will remain almost constant in nearly every move, with the dribble and without it. However, variations like leaning under defenders might require you to lower the ball's position at release and change your lower body shape. Other positions and motions of the five-fold movement, such as gap, fingertip control, bending the wrist, arm alignment, follow-through, and so forth, will remain the same during these creative moves. The mental aspect of shooting is just as important as its external physical execution. It requires inner awareness for you to discover the consistent release point and effortless release necessary for consistency. Let go and allow your body's kinesthetic memory to do its job. Your shooting needs to be unconscious. This means that you allow the holistic intelligence of your body to execute the shot. Let go and let it fly. A virtuoso musician does not think between notes he or she plays. His or her intelligence moves with the flow of the music. Shooting a jump shot flows just like music, while thinking takes us out of this flow. It is the enemy of the shot's execution. Practice alone does not make perfect. Practice brings perfection when executing the correct form and technique against the background of proper mental awareness and attention. If you shoot with the right force, speed, and angle effortlessly, you will make a basket every time.